Hi all. So next up we will have Ahead Ireland who are sharing kind of the different opportunities that they have for students with disabilities. So really interesting presentation to be delivered by Hannah and that will be starting at 2:15. In the meantime, make your way around the stalls if you can at all possible. Pop into those companies, ask those questions, see what information they have about opportunities that might be of interest to you. And if you've any questions for the virtual fair team, make sure to follow us on at MU Future Ready and at Maynooth Uni Placements. But hope you're enjoying the fair so far, and we'll see you again at 2:15. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a nice break and had the opportunity to check out some of the company stalls in the break in between presentations just there. I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Hannah Kelly from Ahead to deliver our next presentation. And this is our final presentation of the fair, but it's by no means least. That doesn't mean anything. It's just as important as all the others. So really excited to welcome Hannah to the fair, and I'll hand over to you, Hannah, for the next 30 minutes or so to deliver your presentation.
Thanks so much for that, Marie, and thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. I know I'm the last speaker of the day, so I won't keep you too long, and hopefully I'll not that the weather is anybody's delighted to get out to, but yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And basically, yeah, this session will cover some opportunities that we have in Ahead for students and graduates with disabilities, and particularly I'm going to cover some placement opportunities and stuff, because I know that's where a lot of you are at in your careers right now. So yeah, as Marie said, my name is Hannah Kelly. I'm the Getahead coordinator with Ahead. And basically today we'll be looking at first defining disability and looking very briefly at employment legislation, and then looking at those two initiatives of Ahead, the WAM programme and our Getahead programme, which I coordinate. And then we'll have a quick look at some upcoming or current opportunities that are available for students and grads on our website at the minute. So just to firstly outline who Ahead are, this might be your first time connecting with us at all. Maybe you've heard of us, maybe not. It's okay if you haven't, but we kind of work in three different sections. So the first being access in college. So at this kind of point, what we're doing is with students who are in school, so in secondary school, we're beginning to look at, admissions routes into third level education, some information on how to apply for those, what supports are available. So a lot of information sharing. We do this through publications that we release every year, as well as our website, and we have a telephone helpline as well if people have any direct queries. And then we do have an annual college fair that happens, very much like better option, like higher options, except it's specifically tailored for students who have disabilities. Then in third level, so there's that kind of second section, and that's where the program that I facilitate comes in. So here we're beginning to look at, again, what supports are available in college, but we're beginning to introduce topics like self-advocacy and disclosure, and to kind of begin to talk about the world of work and preparing for work. And we do this again through our website and through our telephone helpline as well, but also through seminars, so much like this one where we're speaking to students and graduates directly. And then our final kind of section is our employment section. So that's mainly what I'll be speaking about today. And here we give information again around disclosure, and we begin to introduce kind of topics like legislation and still that preparing for work piece. This is mainly done through our work placement scheme, so the WAM programme, which I mentioned already, but also we have publications on our website as well, and we also have an annual college fair that's happened online the last 2 years. It happens around August time. So then there's the kind of stuff that happens behind the scenes. There's a lot of staff training and research that goes on in the background, as well as upskilling the likes of guidance counsellors and disability support staff, working with all those guys throughout the different HEIs. And then the bigger picture then, I suppose, is we do some lobbying, we contribute to policy, and we release annual statistics, which we'll look at in the next slide, of participation rates of students with disabilities. And then we're also part of a European network called LINK, which is basically a network of organisations like ourselves around Europe who work in the disability and education sector. So very briefly, just to give you a kind of an outlook of how many students there are with disabilities, and you know that number has grown year on year. So to put it in context, now it's just over 6%, so 6.2% of the student population are those who have disabilities who have registered with the Disability Office. So obviously we would imagine that this number is actually a lot higher than the 6.2%, but this only counts for people who have actually registered for supports with the disability services in their college. So that represents about, if we take a lecture hall where there's 20 rows and 400 students, that's one student in every row will be a student with a disability. So it is a big number of students, just to give you that little bit of context. And I thought I would start the kind of presentation today just by defining what is disability, because I think this can be something that maybe people don't know whether their disability would count, or they wouldn't necessarily use the word disability for themselves, but they're wondering did the supports still cover them. And the good thing is that the legislation is very clearly defined, and it's very straightforward. So there's no exhaustive list of you know, diagnosis or anything like that count under the legislation. Instead, it's these really kind of wider, more broad definitions of disability, these 5 different ones, which I won't read out now, but I suppose that's just to say that there's no one condition or a list of conditions that are written down. Instead, it's all about how you work and stuff like that. So it's worth checking that out if you're worried about it. But the likes of, you know, mental health or dyslexia, sometimes people feel like they don't count, but they are included in the definition of disability under legislation. And the 2 pieces of legislation that we'd really be looking at in terms of employment and education really is the Equal Status Act 2000 and the Employment Equality Act 1998. So in particular, the Employment Equality Act looks at reasonable accommodations and appropriate measures. So basically under that legislation, it says that an employer would have to take appropriate measures to accommodate a person with a disability in accessing employment, so in, you know, applying for jobs, but also in the advancing of employment, so things like promotion or stuff like that, or even getting trained and that sort of thing. And this doesn't always have to be, you know, physical. So it can be physical equipment, or the you know, a wheelchair ramp or something being put in, something very physical like that. But also can be pattern of work and time. So maybe someone needs time off for medical appointments. Maybe someone needs to work a little bit later or something like that. Or distribution of tasks or provision of training. So maybe you might need a longer induction time, or there's certain tasks that maybe you wouldn't be able to do, so they would not allocate that task to you. And yeah, the kind of big piece that's important to say is that these legislations only come into play once you've disclosed. So, you know, this would have, they only really start to cover you once you've disclosed to an employer that you have a disability. So I won't get too much further into that, but if anyone does have any questions or any, I suppose, specific queries around disclosure, my email was at the start of the slides and it's towards the end as well. So if you have any specific questions around that, I'm happy to answer those at a different time. So the Will Enable Mentoring Program, our WAM program, is mainly what I'm here to speak about today. And I suppose that there's 2 kind of main goals or aims of the program. The first being for the graduates themselves who take on a placement, and then the second being for the employers who take on a graduate through our program. So the first goal, I suppose, is to widen access to employment. So we know that people with disabilities are underemployed when it comes to the general population in comparison to the general population. So with this goal, I suppose, with the program, we're hoping that or the aim is that the graduates will get a learning experience from their placement opportunity, and they're able to benefit from that mentoring piece, which I'll talk about, which is a vital part of the program in order to enable career development, so for them to advance their career prospects. And they're a minimum of 6 months, so 6 months paid at graduate level work placements. And then the second kind of goal that we have is to create attitudinal change within organizations. So really the program helps employers get a better understanding of the barriers to employment, and this is because not only does an employer take on a graduate with our program, but we will look at their employment practices. So we'll look at their job descriptions and see how accessible they are. We'll look at how they interview, how they select, all of those processes. We help make sure that those are as accessible as they can be. And then we also look at, mainstreaming, or we're hoping that it will mainstream inclusive practices and policies. So by them getting the opportunity to see how the process works with the help of our team here, it'll kind of enable them to make attitudinal change within their organizations. And then there's also opportunities for further employment. So for some graduates who do a placement, they might get kept on or something like that within the same organization. So basically in the program, as I said, there's 6 months minimum. So the shortest placements are 6 months. Some of them are a lot longer than that. So some of them are ring fence roles on graduate programs. So they're 2-3 years times. And actually we've one advertising at the minute that's a full-time permanent position. So they're fully paid at graduate level. The payment comes directly from the employer. So, and it really is, it depends on what the role is, because we have roles in all different industries. It's kind of industry standard what the payment will be. Then there's a needs assessment process in this as well. So we'll go into exactly how the process works. So basically the needs assessment, you'll meet with one of our needs assessors in Getahead. So they'll look at maybe what support you had in college or in a previous work placement or previous job or something like that, and link that up with what the job is that you'll be doing, and make sure that those any kind of supports are put in place before you start. And then the unique part of our program is the mentoring piece as well. So when you start in the role, you'll be given obviously your manager, but you'll also be given the contact details of a mentor. And this is a person who isn't necessarily on your team, who isn't your manager, and is ideally someone who's at the same level as you are. But they're there for you to be able to, I suppose, use to develop your career. So maybe they're helping you look at your CV, or they're helping you look at, how do I apply for other roles within the company? Or maybe it's just you have some questions that you don't necessarily want to ask your manager about, particularly in the kind of working from home space. This has been great because people can ask questions like, like when should we meet for coffee? Like, is there a video chat that happens? Or when do people usually take breaks or whatever? So it's a really useful part of the program as well. So we work with lots of different employers, and we're always getting new employers coming on board as well. So these are just a selection of some of the employers that we work with: Enterprise, Bank of Ireland, public jobs. So we do civil service placements every year as well, ESB, Bank of America. So there's lots of different like Irish employers and multinational employers that we work with, and these placements come up all throughout the year, so they come up as they come in basically. So the best way to kind of keep notified of any of these placements is to register with our database, and I'll give you the link to that shortly. So benefits for graduates. What are the benefits for graduates? Well, it's paid work experience, first of all. It's a great chance to demonstrate your skills and enhance your career development. So kind of get your foot on the ladder. It's great to get that kind of first placement out of the way. It's a safe space to disclose. So disclosure is still up to the graduates themselves. So we don't disclose on the graduate's behalf. Obviously, because you're coming in through the WAM program, the employer will know that you have a disability, but we won't tell them exactly what that disability is. The only information that we give them is the supports that are recommended from doing the needs assessment. So it is up to yourself to disclose. But we do recommend that if someone is doing a placement on the WAM program, that they do disclose, because because the employers have signed up to be part of this program, and they're working with Getahead, they have some good general disability awareness, and we will have done some disability awareness training with the team before you start as well. So it's a good chance to practice that conversation to build your confidence in having a conversation around disclosure and asking for support. So as I said, yeah, there's a comprehensive needs assessment to identify supports which happen before you start your placement, and then also that support of a mentor on site. And yeah, so then as always, you will have ongoing support from WAM throughout. So if something maybe isn't working, or if the supports that were recommended aren't really working for you and you need them revisited, at any time you can contact WAM, and we can go in and have a look and see if there's another solution that can come up. So that's great to have. And then I suppose more importantly, what are the benefits for our employers? So I think a lot of the time when we look at these programs, we think of how great it is for you guys, for the students and the graduates, but it's also a really good opportunity for the employers themselves. So as I said, we do some disability proofing for their HR and recruitment practices. So things like looking at the job descriptions that they send us and that kind of thing. They're also getting access to our graduate database, which has a lot of great and really varied graduates on that database as well. So we have graduates from all different disciplines all across the country. We do some training for HR staff and for line managers on disability, and it's a safe space for any employer to ask us questions and to kind of get a better understanding of disability and support in the workplace. And that kind of comprehensive needs assessment is great, not only for the graduates, but also for the employers too, so they know exactly what they need to put in place in order to support and accommodate their new employee. So as I said, yeah, the best way to keep notified of any jobs that kind of go live with our program is to register on our database. So it's ahead.ie/wamworks. I've said that these slides can be shared with everyone afterwards, so feel free to do that, and you can kind of tap into any of these links and stuff that I have here. But basically, when you sign up to the database, you just have to input some basic information around your background, so what you're studying. If you're not due to graduate for another couple of years, you can input that into the registration too, so that you know, you're not getting notification of all the jobs as they go live, but you will be notified of any workshops or that we have going on at the same time. We don't ask for your disability. The only thing we ask for is category of disability, so physical, sensory, anything like that, and that's only for our own statistics. So that, again, as I said, it doesn't get shared with employers. The disclosure only comes afterwards, so you will have to disclose what your disability is to our needs assessors, but that's just so that we can get the right supports in place for you. So the WAM process, so the first thing is to just register on the WAMWorks database, and then you'll get email notifications from us whenever jobs go live, and you can apply then for any WAM placement that is in your background or that you're interested in applying for. So the recruitment processes are exactly as they would be in any other kind of application process. So all of the recruitment is done by the employer. So the employer is the one who interviews, and they're the one who does the selection process. So we're not involved in that piece. The only information that we send over prior to the interview is if you have any interview accommodations. So if you need a sign language interpreter, or if you need extra time or anything like that, we'll send that over in advance. And then the offer is extended by the employer. So the employer will offer you, hopefully, your new job. And at that stage, we come back into the process. So that's when we'll do the needs assessment. We ask for information from the employer, you know, the role and what exactly your day-to-day tasks will be, and we link that up with the supports that you think you might need before we make recommendations of what should be put. And then there's monthly check-ins with WAM. So someone from the WAM team will check in with you once a month just to make sure that things are going well, an opportunity for you to maybe give any feedback, or if there's any issues or whatever that you need WAM to get involved in. And then obviously they're monthly check-ins, but at any time if you need to call or contact WAM, you can do. So we know that the program works. So 80% of graduates who are placed in a WAM program have secured full-time work within 12 months. So this is either within the organization that they did a placement with or elsewhere. So 80% within a year were in full-time work, and 94% of graduates gain confidence in their ability to work in a mainstream environment. So they came out of the environment feeling more confident, especially in that disclosure piece. And so there's a comment there from one of our WAM graduates who said, if it wasn't for WAM, I would still be on the equivalent of the disability allowance, which is €188 a week. So I'm just going to go quickly through some current opportunities that we have at the minute, in case these might be of interest to any of you guys. So I know a lot of you are still in college, so some of them might actually be more relevant than others. So the first one that we have is with the NTMA. It's a ring fence placed on their graduate program, which will be commencing in October 2022. It's a 2-year contract in Dublin. So what they're looking for is a level 8 degree or a master's degree, ideally in accountancy, commerce, finance, economics, or a related discipline. And the closing date for applications is the 22nd of October. Then with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, so this is a graduate management trainee, and that's commencing as soon as possible. So this placement was actually due to close, or the kind of closing date was this afternoon. It was supposed to close at 12, but because I had this session today, we've extended that to the end of the day. So if you are interested in this, make sure you kind of look on our website as soon as you get off this. So it's a permanent contract in Dublin, and they're looking for a bachelor's degree in any discipline. So yeah, only a few hours before that one closes. So have a look at that one. And then two that might be of interest, because I know some of you are still students and still studying. So these are both with AbbVie, who's a new employer of ours. So the first is the sales and marketing role, which is beginning in April or June of 2022, but there is some flexibility there. It's a 12-month contract in Dublin, and they're looking for a student or a graduate of business, or a business-related major. And then the second is a chemical engineer, so that's commencing again in January 2022, but it can be flexible for the summertime in next year as well. And it's a 12-month contract in Sligo, and again they're looking for a student or a graduate of chemical engineering. So both of those close on the 27th of October. So I've hyperlinked it there. Again, these slides will be available to you afterwards, and all these links are in it. But the web page for that is ahead.ie/current opportunities. So that's where you'll find any of these opportunities at the minute. Or if you just go onto our general ahead.ie webpage, you'll find it. It'll be on the front page there. You can click into it. And then just to let you know of some upcoming opportunities that will be available at the end of October. So applications for both of these will be up in the next couple of weeks. So the first one is with Vmware for a technical graduate program commencing in July 2022. And it's a permanent contract based in Cork, and they're looking for a bachelor's degree in a kind of a relevant discipline. And then Pfizer, 2 graduate program roles starting next summer, so in summer 2022. And 2 intern roles commencing in January 2022 for students on placement. So that might be relevant for some of you who are looking for placement opportunities, and they're opening soon. So both of those will be open in the next couple of weeks. So it's something to look out for. And then, so that's all kind of on our WAM program. I very quickly then just want to touch on the Getahead program, so the program that I coordinate. Basically, all of these opportunities for WAM and Getahead come through that same database, the WAM Works database. So if you're interested in any of those placements, but also anything to do with Getahead, your best bet is to register on that database. So with the Getahead program, basically we provide lots of upskilling workshops for students and graduates. So this can be things like CV writing or disclosure, interview skills. So we either do these workshops in-house, like ourselves will present, either myself or some of my colleagues will present these workshops, or we work directly with some of our employers that I talked about earlier, and they'll kind of facilitate some of these workshops for us as well. And then, as I mentioned, we have an annual careers fair called Building the Future, which happens in the summertime. And then we also do some disability awareness training as well. So the likes of USI or clubs and societies and student unions, and we would do some disability awareness training there. And then we have our Student with Disabilities Advisory Group, which is an advisory group that is co-chaired between ourselves and USI. It's basically a group of students with disabilities who feed into our work at kind of board level, and really it's a great group. And I'm actually currently looking through applications, so unfortunately the applications are closed for this year. And I'm having a hard time already looking through the applications because we've got some great ones in. So the next workshop that we have with that with that Getahead program is our CV building one that's coming up on the 19th. So the 19th of October next week from 12 to 1. It's going to take place on Zoom. So again, the registration link is there on that slide, which will be shared with you afterwards. Or if you go on our website as well, it's on the front landing page of our website on ahead.ie too, if you're looking to register for that. And there is those workshops come up kind of every couple of weeks, every couple of months, there's something going on. So it's definitely of use to you all to be registered on the database so you can avail of these things and be aware of any of the programs or job opportunities that come up. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. I know that was kind of a whistle-stop tour of the WAM program and of Getahead as well. But I suppose just wanted to introduce the two to you there, and particularly those placement opportunities that are coming up next year might be relevant for some of you and might be interesting for some of you to have a look at. So that's my email there. If anybody is interested in getting some more information, or if there's a follow-up question that you had that you don't want to ask in a public forum, then that's fine too. But I might see, Maria, I don't know if you can see if there's any questions that have come in. I actually can't see them myself.
Yeah, Hannah, thanks so much for that presentation. It was really interesting, and delighted to learn more about what Ahead do and the different programs and events that they have available to students. So we'll definitely support you in promoting those as much as possible. Some great opportunities there. A question came in just asking, what advice do you have on disclosing a disability to a potential employer?
Yeah, so we do have workshops regularly on disclosure, and that would be a whole hour presentation that we do. So I'll give as much information as I can here. But generally, what our recommendation is to disclose at the point where you need a support. So if you maybe don't need a support at interview, there's probably no point in disclosing beforehand, or at interview if you don't feel like you need a support. There's probably no point in disclosing. So we say to disclose at the point where you need a support. So maybe that's when you start the job. You'd mention, okay, I need a piece of tech or something like that. And we say this because unfortunately discrimination does happen. So we don't like to think of it, but it does happen sometimes. And it's very hard to prove that you've been discriminated against before you've actually got a job. So it's very hard to say whether you were discriminated against or whether there was just someone who was a better fit for the role. But there is exceptions to that rule as well. So like if you just want to disclose, that's perfectly a perfectly good reason to disclose as well. And for some people, you might necessarily need a support, but if you don't disclose, you feel like it might affect your performance. So for example, if maybe you're on the spectrum, you have autism, or if you are anxious and maybe you won't be able to make eye contact, or might struggle with some parts of the interview, that you might come across really super nervous, and that might impact how they perceive you or how they perceive the interview, but it's actually a disability issue. You might choose to disclose it in that instance because it could actually work against you not having a fuller picture of how you work. But generally speaking, we would say to disclose at the point where you need a support. And there is on our website, if you have a look on our website there's a downloadable kind of booklet where you can fill in, and it kind of takes you through the steps and questions you should be asking yourself before you have that kind of disclosure conversation. So I'd recommend taking a look at that for anybody who is thinking about disclosure.
Yeah, absolutely. Some fantastic guidance there for students, and great that they have that resource. Another
Yeah.
question just came in saying, thank you so much for sharing. I'm from Vietnam and I think we haven't had supportive programs like these for students with disability. I'll share with my friends more about you as a role model, as an organisation. So that's fantastic.
Brilliant. Great to hear.
So that's brilliant. No other questions in today. If any students have any questions now, pop them in the chat. We've another 2 minutes before the
Yeah.
question box closes on me. It's been a devil today.
Yeah.
But Hannah, thank you so much. It's fantastic to hear what the team at Ahead are doing, and it's reassuring to know that students have these supports,
Yeah.
and it's knocking down those barriers, which is fantastic. Let's see if there's anything else. Nothing else coming through. And like we said at the beginning, Hannah has kindly shared her slides with us. We did record the session as well, and we will be adding captions to it, because unfortunately it just wasn't available within the current functionality of the platform. But Hannah, from all of us at the MU Virtual Affairs team, we really appreciate you joining us today and for sharing that presentation and for joining us at the fair. So students, get applying for those opportunities, and pop on over to the head stall. I think you've 15 minutes left.
Thanks so
Thanks so
much.
much, Anna.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.